Somebody knocked at our door yesterday.
Forecast calls for occasional spring showers this morning, followed by partial.
They just knocked on it. And I was like, what? And I looked out. There was nobody there.
Well, there's your ghost right there.
Welcome to Scary Mystery Surprise.
Where we talk about scary things that surprised us around the internet.
I'm Edwin.
And I'm Michelle. So we're settling in for a little film history. In the late 1970s, Wes Craven, who you know, correct?
No.
Wes Craven is the horror filmmaker. You know, his first horror classic was The Last House on the Left, and he realized he had a talent for scaring people. Also, he could only get funding for scary movies, which I think is funny. But he also became one of the most well-known, best-known horror filmmakers of all time.
Wow.
He's responsible for a lot of movies, but today we're going to talk about one in particular, which the title scares me. So 40 years ago, he produced another film on a very tight budget called The Hills Have Eyes.
I didn't know that. Like, what's his name? What's his name?
Wes Craven.
See, how come I don't know about this? That just
I
shows
don't
you.
know.
That just shows everyone how little I know about movies like that. But yeah, The Hills Have Eyes is the scariest one.
I've never seen it. I'll never see it because of the title. It's like Human Centipede. I don't need to see that.
Yeah, don't. Nobody should.
Needs to see that. You just get it from the title. It's good SEO. But that's how I feel about The Hills Have Eyes, which is funny because, like, when I was a teen, at nighttime we'd hike down to different beaches, and we were hiking down to this one beach, and there was a massive hill. And this kid that we were with was just like, the hills have eyes. And we sprinted back up that hill. He just had to say, the hills have eyes. And then your brain just fills in what that is. It doesn't even matter. And so we sprinted back up to the cars. But in case you've never seen it, here's a small synopsis of The Hills Have Eyes, because it's pretty brutal even by today's standards. Bob Carter and his wife Ethel and 5 other family members decide to take their camper vans and drive towards San Diego. An accident occurs. Then the group gets stranded in the desert. 2 of the men decide to go for help, and the rest of the group decides to stay put and wait. But what they don't know is where they're stranded was where a nuclear test site had occurred decades earlier, and it mutated a group of people who'd now developed the taste for human flesh.
Yeah, I can visualize all of this. I remember that scene. The accident wasn't an accident. It was, they try to stop you in the, I don't want to ruin the movie, but it's, yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
The fact that I've never seen it, and someone just has to say The Hills Have Eyes, and while I'm looking at a dark hill.
It's an awesome title, honestly. Like, it's descriptive.
Ugh. But did you know, the scary thing is, the movie is actually based on a story, a true story of Alexander Sawney Bean. The man known as Alexander Sawney Bean was born in the late 1500s near Edinburgh, Scotland. Very little is known about his early days. Sawney Bean's father was a ditch digger and a hedge trimmer, and it was said that Sawney tried to work within his father's trade, but he wasn't into it, and so he left to make his own way in the world.
He wasn't into that?
I mean, come on. You mean he didn't want to dig ditches for the rest of his life? Jeez, what an ungrateful bastard. After Sawney Bean met the woman he would marry, a woman known as Black Agnes Douglas.
Why was she known as that?
I don't know, but her name was Black Agnes. I'm assuming because she had dark hair, or she was black. We don't know.
The name, it's just like my name, Brown Edwin Covarrubias.
Well, and I'm translucent white Michelle, so... Okay, anyway, Black Agnes Douglas also didn't want to live a life of labor, so she was kind of against the system as well. So it's kind of like a marriage made in heaven, pretty much. Mm-hmm. So The couple decided to remove themselves from society and go live in a sea cave called Brennan Cave off the coast.
Okay.
I don't know why a cave sounded appealing, but like I think of like homesteaders or whatever, early off-gridders.
Sounds cool. Like as a kid, I always wanted to do
Right.
that. I think I told you I
Yeah.
wanted to dig a cave and just live in it, or find a cool natural spot and live in it. That'd be, I don't know.
Right. I mean, it makes sense. Sawney Bean, in order to support his wife, he started ambushing and robbing people who were traveling on the roads connecting the villages in the region.
Such a good husband.
To prevent being caught by the authorities, he started murdering his victims. But then he was like, what am I going to do with these bodies?
Oh no.
And so, of course, Sawney Bean took up cannibalism. This act not only got rid of the bodies, but it stopped the couple from having to make unnecessary trips back to town for provisions. Because the high-protein diet seemed to really have a positive effect on Mrs. Bean, and she began to produce little baby beans. 14 little baby beans in total,
What?
each with a very unhealthy appetite for human flesh.
Okay, they just got real.
Yeah, and then as the babies grew up and in turn through incest produced their own baby beans, the cooking pots increased in a dramatic size. Over 2 decades, generations of the Beanie Babies grew up in that cave, the Brennan Cave, refining their skills of murder and cannibal cuisine, including the now lost art of salting and pickling the flesh. Which I just thought that was a funny quote of like, yeah, I guess it's a lost art. People don't know how to pickle and salt their human flesh anymore. Bummer. The family of 45, so that's 45 fucking people, would then murder their victims, eat until full, and then pickle the remains in large barrels so the leftovers could be taken care of. They would then discard body parts like a foot here or a hand there in local waterways to make it look like animals were responsible for all the missing travelers. Which, isn't that just poisoning waterways? I mean, isn't that...
I mean, I'm sure people are doing things now that are poisoning us in every way possible. But
yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Even with all their precautions, people were starting to notice, and the locals started making efforts to try and find out who the perpetrators were and bring them to justice. But the problem was, the cave that the Bean family lived in was so well hidden, and the mouth of the cave was actually, during high tide, it would fill with water, so you couldn't even see there was a cave entrance there.
Oh, wow.
So like twice a day, the mouth of the cave would be covered by water.
So they would have to like swim out?
No, they just wouldn't leave the cave when high tide was happening.
Oh.
Also, what was even stranger is that because of the tide situation, the Beans only hunted at night. So they stayed in their cave in the daytime.
And this is real.
Well, we'll get to that. But anyway, the townspeople were at a loss, and they didn't know what to do. They didn't even know that the Beans existed. It was just that these people were disappearing on the road. No one knew what was going on. Cut to Edwin. You and your beloved wife, Shakira, are returning from the fair. She's like, it's been a great day, but you stayed past sunset. Luckily, the horses know the way home, and it's a beautiful night. Suddenly, you hear... I'm going to try and do Scottish, okay? Get the Jesse bowl bag.
Sounds really good. Okay.
Thank you. And Jesse means weak man. You are a weak man. Suddenly, you're surrounded by large men with distorted features, large eyes, and teeth that have been shaved into points. There is a red stain around their lips. You're hit with the smell of unwashed bodies and stale blood. Before you even have time to draw your pistol, they have pulled your wife down from her horse and disemboweled her. They are coming for you, and you know you need to fight. You charge at them with your horse, swinging your sword.
I have a sword.
You have a
Ooh.
sword. And then another word, these bum poots weren't expecting a fight.
I like it.
Other people leaving the fair hear the commotion and run to your aid. You live, but your beautiful wife, Shakira, lays in a pile of her own guts, dead in the grass. The Beans escape, but now their existence is known. And after this event, the group, including you, Edwin, traveled to Glasgow to report the attack and the murder to the local magistrate. And they brought this news to King James VI, who at the time sat on the throne of the King of Scotland. King James was also so shocked by what he was hearing, he decided to take action himself. He, along with 400 men with bloodhounds, went to the site of the slaughter. The hounds quickly picked up the scent and found the hidden sea cave. The Beans surrendered without a fight. When people entered the cave system, they were shocked by what they found. Inside the cave was complete filth. Body parts hung from the walls to dry, while others were stored in jars and barrels to be pickled. The possessions of all the lost people were just dumped in piles around the cave. The family was placed in chains and then brought to the old toll booth jail in Edinburgh. It was decided that the family didn't deserve a trial due to their actions. They immediately decided to cut off the men's hands and feet and genitalia and let them bleed to death. And then they did that in front of the women so the women could watch. And then after the men died, they burnt all the women at the stake.
That's brutal.
I know. But also, imagine walking into that cave system and seeing, like, I mean, they were doing this for 20 years.
I don't know why I'm sympathizing here, but like, if you grow up in that environment and then you do that, is it really your fault? If you
I
don't know
mean,
any
look,
better?
I understand that argument. I get it. But I don't think there was any rehabilitation happening for these.
I don't know how I feel about that, but yeah, I get it. I get it.
I mean, they did just disembowel your wife, so it's nice of you to have empathy. But anyway, with the women burning at the stake, that ended the family's reign of terror. This story has been debated for years, of course.
Yes, okay, cool.
Some people believe it's completely true, even though there is a lack of documented evidence of the family's existence or even the trial and execution, which is kind of weird. Even though it was like the 1500s, there would probably be some sort of record of it. And then others think it's a lore that had developed over time, which does raise questions about how like a story of like this would develop. During this time in Scotland and England, the English press regularly portrayed people from Scotland in a negative light or having an evil nature. Experts believe that the story could have been political propaganda with the goal to make the Scottish appear uncivilized and backwards in comparison to the superior qualities of the British. And there's even speculation that Daniel Defoe, the author of Robinson Crusoe, actually wrote the Sawney Bean story.
Huh.
I don't know. I thought that was kind of cool. It was like, that was how in-depth the propaganda could have been.
I mean, it's not impossible. I mean, it seems like that kind of story, honestly, like the kind of stuff he would write.
Yeah.
So The Hills Have Eyes would be a ripoff off of another story.
Well, here's the thing. So whether the tale is true or not, the Sawney Bean like story, the family is like now a cottage industry in Edinburgh. So like there's all sorts of stuff. The Sawney Bean attraction in the Edinburgh jail is like one of the most popular attractions, which they just have a room dedicated to it. So whether it's real or not. But the story caught the attention of Wes Craven, who was inspired by an article he read about Sawney Bean while he was at the New York Library and transformed it into the story we know today.
Wow.
And then also it probably influenced the Texas Chainsaw Massacre as well.
Yeah. Similar themes, yeah.
And that's the story behind The Hills Have Eyes. I won't watch it.
It's just that it could be real. Like it could happen.
Yeah.
Plus, I used to really like traveling through the desert.
Oh,
like
yeah.
as in just not necessarily like overland, but I used to, get on the Suburban,
Mhm.
drive, and then just kind of stop wherever. rest for a little bit, keep going. Like it was fun. It was cool.
Yeah.
And I always thought, like, what if I get stuck here? Like, literally, I haven't seen a car in like a while. I'm like, huh.
I mean, I've been driving on that road out to Barstow, between like Apple Valley and Barstow, and it's all those there's all those houses that just have like a pit bull and then some like 8,000 rusty cars.
Uh-huh.
You
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
not think about the Hills Have Eyes when you're like
Yeah.
out there. It's like, oh, if my car broke down and I had to go walk to get help, would I ever come back?
Probably not. Nobody's gonna hear you scream. You're done. That's it.
I like the desert, but people move out to the desert to be alone. They do not
Yeah.
want to be messed with.
I like that. I didn't know any of that. Even the guy who came up with the movie, I had no idea. Never looked it up.
I can't believe you didn't know Wes Craven.
Bizarre. I can't think. I think they have a second Hills Have Eyes movie. I'm not.
Yeah, there was a remake. I remember it was like in theaters when we went down to the beach, and that's why it was even a topic of conversation. Is that it was like in theaters or something like that. So
Also, that movie is really brutal. Like, it's very not even gory because I mean, there's gore in it, but it's not like it's like really brutal deaths.
no thanks. No thank
If
you.
anybody's seen it, the shotgun scene is what I have like in my mind. Like, I can see it. It's
Ugh.
be careful if you watch it because it's gonna make you paranoid because it's
Or, you'll just get paranoid by the title of it, like I did.
oh, I mean, at least it's not like a hill with eyes on it.
What is that so funny? The idea, and then like this hill just opens one eye at a time, and it's like bloop.
Like, that's the whole movie, like an hour and a half.
It's just like doo, doo, doo. Anyway, Edwin, what are we going to talk about next week?
I don't know. I think it'll be a surprise.
Scary Mystery Surprise is hosted by Michelle Newman and
Edwin Covarrubias. This podcast was edited and sound designed by Sarah Vorhees Wendel of VW Sound.